Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to show how to show a certain number of months depending on the user's selection. So let's say that you selected here 2013 as the year and July as the month. So you have July 2013 selected as the filter context. Then you're going to show 6 months here back from July 13. So you have July 13, June, May, April, March, and February 13. So in total, you have 6 months of data here for the sales. And you have a slicer here at the top as well. If you select 5, then you're going to only show 5 months of data. If you select 7, then you're going to show 7 months. If you select 12, you're going to show 12 months, etc. And if you select a different date here, so let's say I selected May 2013, then I'm going to show 12 months in total going back from May 2013. So this is the trick we're going to show in this video, how to implement that in Power BI. But before we start the video, I'd like to inform you that the majority of the people who are watching videos on our channel are not subscribed to our channel. So I'd really appreciate if you'd hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon as well to be notified with all of our coming videos. And please don't forget to give this video a like and share it with your friends. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, so we're starting here where we have a year and a month name slicer here, which we're taking from the calendar table. And the data model we have here is simply your standard AdventureWorks data model. You have the products table, you have the calendar table, which was created using Power Query. You have the customers table and the territories table, and they're all dimension tables that are filtering the fact table here, which is the sales table via a one-to-many relationship. All right, so an important step is to create a month and year column. So we need to create a month and year column that would say, for example, July 13 or April 12. It would show the month and the year. So to do that, we're going to go to Power Query here on the transform data, and we're going to go to the calendar table, and we're going to go add column here and then custom column. We're going to add a custom column, and we're going to call that month and year. And for that, we're going to use the date.toText function. So we're going to give it the date column here on the calendar table. And then we're going to give it triple M capital so that it can extract the month as 3 characters. And then we're going to concatenate onto that. We're going to concatenate a dash or a hyphen, right? And then we're going to also concatenate date.toText function again. So we're going to use the date.toText here, date.toText, and we're going to also give it the date, and then we're going to extract the year as a double Y here as a text. So this will give us the year as 2 characters. So as you can see here, this part of the formula here will give us the month, such as July, right? And then we're going to have a hyphen there, right? And then we're going to have another part of the formula here, which will give us the years. This is going to give us, for example, July 13. So this is what the formula will give us here on the column, and we're going to press OK. So as you can see here, now we get, for example, January 10, which is January 2010. February 10, and so on and so forth. And we're going to make that a text. However, if we don't sort this column, because this column, if we add this column to an x-axis of a chart or a visual, we're going to have a problem because this column will not be sorted in the proper order of the months. It will be sorted in an ascending order. So for example, you're going to have the first month as April because April is the first month when sorting the months names in an alphabetical ascending order. So in order to be able to sort this column, we're going to add another column. We're going to call it month year sort. So this is going to help us to sort the month year column here. And for that, we're going to use the date.toText function here as well. And we're going to extract the year as 4 digits from the date. And then we're going to concatenate onto that a date.toText as well to extract the month number from the date as well. as 2 characters. Okay, so double M. So this formula should give us, for example, the year here as let's say 2010, and then if the month is February, for example, it's going to be 2010-02, or is going to be 2013, for example, 08 for August 2013. So this is going to allow us to sort the month and year column. So if we click OK here, you can see here that we get this serial number. So this is a serial number here that can help us sort this month and year column, and then we're gonna make this a whole number because this is a whole number. All right, and we're gonna close and apply. So after adding these 2 columns, we're gonna close and apply here. We managed to add these 2 columns successfully to our calendar table. All right, so now to be able to explain what the concept is behind the solution, we're gonna insert a table visual here. This is a table visual, and we're going to insert our month and year column here from the calendar table, and we're going to also insert our sales amount measure, which is simply by iterating the sales table and multiplying the order quantity by the unit price. This is simply what the sales amount measure is. So here you go. This is it, as you can see here. Let's actually increase the size of the values a bit on the table here. So made it 15 so that, you know, we're able to see it. And let's also increase the size of the column headers a bit, maybe make it 12 so that we can see the results better. So as you can see here, whenever we select a date here, you can see here that we get only 1 row on the table. And this is because the calendar table directly filters the sales table. So we're not going to be able to get that effect of having multiple months show if we just use the calendar table, as you can see here, because the calendar table directly filters the sales table, and so it filters, of course, the sales amount measure that we create. Whatever is in the table visual gets filtered to only 1 month because of that. All right, so now to solve this problem here of having only 1 month show up because of the filter context selected on the year and the month name here in the slicers, what we need to do is to create a duplicate calendar table that we're gonna utilize to perform our trick of showing multiple months here on the visual, whether it's a table or it's a line chart or whatever. So to create this duplicate calendar table, we're gonna go back to Power Query here, and we're gonna basically create a table that references the calendar table. And referencing the calendar table is useful because any changes made in the future on the calendar table, such as, for example, adding more data, will also be reflected in the new duplicate calendar table. So we're going to right click here and we're going to reference our calendar table. Don't use duplicate in this case because duplicate will just make a copy, but then referencing will make a copy that also inherits any changes made on the calendar table, whether it's more dates added or more columns added or whatever. Okay, so we're gonna call this, let's say we're gonna call it calendar dash last n months. Okay, so this is the calendar table that we're gonna use to implement that trick of showing the last n months of data. N is how many months we're going to choose. And we're going to close and apply here. So this duplicate calendar table will be just a duplicate of the calendar table and will also be referencing the calendar table. And I'm going to place it on top of the calendar table here because what we're going to intend to do with that table is to filter the calendar table, the original calendar table. So this duplicate calendar table, or the calendar last n months table, we're going to connect it to the calendar table. So we're going to create a relationship here between the date column here on the duplicate calendar table and the date column on the calendar table. And as you can see here, this type of the relationship, it's not going to be a one-to-one. It's actually going to be a one-to-many relationship. And also what we're going to do is that we're not going to make this relationship active. Okay, it's not going to be active, and the cross filter direction is going to be single. So we're not going to make it active because we're going to activate it only when we need to. And we're going to do this using the reuse relationship function. We're going to see that. So now we have a relationship here between the calendar last n months table and the calendar table. It will be a one-to-many relationship, and it will be an inactive relationship going in a single direction. So this means that the calendar last n months table filters the calendar table, but not vice versa. The calendar table does not filter the calendar last n months table, or the duplicate calendar table. We're going to click on save here, and this relationship has been created here. And of course, because the calendar table already filters the sales table, so any filters applied on the calendar last n months table here, which filters the calendar table, will go all the way to the sales table. So this means that the calendar last n months will filter the sales table as well, because the filters will move here or be cascaded all the way to the sales table. All right, so after creating the duplicate calendar table and connecting it to our calendar table, what we need to do here is to go to the duplicate calendar table and replace here the month on so we're going to replace here the month and year that are coming from the calendar table. Okay, and we're going to take the month and year from the duplicate calendar table and add it to our table. So now, as you can see here, when we apply a filter here from the calendar table, the result we're showing here is only the sales for that particular month that we selected on the calendar table. So this is what the sales amount is showing at the moment, because the filter context is May 2012 and the calendar table filters the sales table. So this is the result we're showing for all the months here. And although the calendar last n months filters the calendar table and these months are coming from the calendar last n months, the relationship is not activated in this case because it's not active by default, or it's not activated by default. We're going to activate it using a formula, so it doesn't work all the time. So this is why the filters here from these months are not being applied, which these months are coming from the duplicate calendar table. So the figure we're seeing here is for the month selected here on the calendar table on the slicers. So May 2012, this is the sales for May 2012. There is also another problem here with the month and year, because as you can see here, the month and year are being sorted alphabetically instead of being sorted in the proper order of the months. So what we need to do here is to sort the month and year in the proper order. So we're going to select the month and year here on the duplicate calendar table and sort by column, and we're going to sort it by the month year sort column. And as you can see here, they've been sorted in the proper order. So now it's Jan, Feb, March, etc. And we could also do that on the calendar table. So we could go to the month and year column here and sort it by the month year sort column as well, so that they would also be sorted properly on the calendar table. All right, so because this sales amount measure is not providing us with the results that we want, what we need to do is to create a different measure that can provide us with the results that we want. So we're going to create a new measure here. Let's call it sales amount last n months. And for this measure, we're going to start with a variable. And so this variable will capture the maximum date or the latest date in the current filter context. Okay, so this is going to be max date here. This is going to be the name of the variable, and it's going to be by getting the maximum value of the date on the calendar table. So this will capture the maximum value of the date selected here in the current filter context. So for example, at the moment we have 2012 and May. So the result of this variable will be May 31st, for example. And then what we need to do is to also create another variable that will be a table. It's going to be a table of dates that goes back 6 months from this date here. So we're going to create another variable here that is, I'm going to give it a prefix of TBL because this variable will yield a table. Okay, TBL last months, for example. Okay, so this will have the last 6 months or the last 7 months or whatever months, but we're going to create it first based on 6 months, and then we're going to adjust it by creating a parameter. So we'll see that. So this variable here will be created using the dates in period function. So for this function, where the first input is the date column that we're going to work with, and in this example, the date column will be the date column on the duplicate calendar table. So this is going to be the date column on the duplicate calendar table. So this is going to be calendar last n months table, and we're going to select the date column on that table here. This is going to be the column containing our dates here, and then the starting date will be the maximum date variable here. So this is going to be the starting date, so the second input to the function, and then the number of intervals to go back, we're going to go back -6, we're going to go back by 6, and we're going to select here month on the last input here for the interval. So we're going to go back 6 months from the maximum date here captured, so the date in the current filter context. Okay, so this is going to be the table of dates that we're going to use as a filter later. Okay, and then here we're going to create another variable, which is our result. The result will be by using the calculate function. We're going to calculate the sales amount, which is our sales amount measure, and what we're going to do is that we're going to insert this table of dates here, the TBL last months, as a filter for the calculate. So this will overwrite any filters applied from the duplicate calendar table or from the calendar last n months table. And we're also going to activate the relationship between the calendar table and the calendar last n months table, which is a relationship between the date column on the calendar table and the date column on the calendar last n months table here. So this will activate the relationship so that in fact, the duplicate calendar table can filter the calendar table, because if this relationship is not activated, then the duplicate calendar table or the calendar last n months table will not filter the calendar table. And then we're just going to return here the result. So here is the new measure that we created. We're going to add it here to the table, and let's just make it with 0 decimal places. And as you can see here, the number that we're getting is actually the same number here, which is 358,878, which is the sales for May 2012. And so as you can see here, we're getting the result for May 12. If we select, for example, July 13, you can see here that we're getting the sales for July 13. So you can see here that we're still not getting the results that we want. So in order to understand what is happening and how we can improve that measure, the sales amount last 10 months measure, to get the results that we want, I'm going to bring over my whiteboard here. So our current slicer selection here is July 2013. So as you can see here, this is our current selection, July 2013. So as you can see, we have this July 13 selection coming from the calendar table here. So you can see here the blue filter is coming from the blue table, and then we have our red filters here coming from the red table, which is the calendar last n months. And of course, we know that the red table filters the blue table. So in this case, we have some filters applied here from the red table, which are 6 months of filters. These filters are being applied here by this table here, right? This table that we created as a variable, and then this table has been added as a filter, right? Because the filters for calculate are usually tables. So this variable here is imposing a 6 months filter on the current filter context here, right? It's applying a 6 months filter. So this is being imposed. So the filters we're getting from the red table are 6 months of dates, and the filter we're getting from the blue table is only 1 month. So therefore, what you're seeing is just the intersection between these two filters. So these two filters, they would intersect at the single month here, the same month, which is July 13. So this is why you're seeing the sales for July 2013. This is the result of the two filters. Now, what we can do in order to not see just July 13, so one more step that we can do is that we can remove this July 13 filter. We can just eliminate the filter here that is coming from the blue calendar table. So we can do that using the all function here or the remove filters function, right? There's a remove filters function as well. So both can do that. So therefore, if we go here to our measure and just add an all function here, remove the filters on the calendar table, the blue table, right? The blue table is the calendar table. We're just going to remove all filters on the calendar table. So if we do that and press enter, so this is one more filter added to calculate, the figure we're getting here now is actually 6 months of sales going back from July. So starting from July and then go back 5 months, so 6 months in total. So we're seeing the sales here. What we're seeing here after doing that in step 2 is that after applying this step 2 and removing all the filters on the calendar table, we now have our filters here on the blue table are all the dates on the calendar table, and we have only 6 months of dates still from the red table here, from the duplicate calendar table. So now the intersection between these two filters, right? If we have all the dates and we have only 6 months of dates, the intersection will be these 6 months. So we're now seeing the sales for 6 months here in total, aggregated. So this is the summation of sales for these 6 months that we're seeing here for July, June, May, April, March, and February. This is the summation of sales for these 6 months after removing all the filters from the calendar table. So this is the second step that we've applied here. But we don't want to see 6 months of sales aggregated. This is not what we want. What we want to see is the sales for each month for only the 6 months that we want, which are going back from July by 6 months. So including July, we want to see 5 more months going back as well. So this is not our intended result still. So therefore, the next step that we will need to do is to enable the individual months filters from the duplicate calendar table. So there are these filters here are being applied from the duplicate calendar table. So we want these filters to be effective so that they can filter the result here on each line so that it shows only the single months, but it will show it. We want it to show it only for the 6 months going back from July 13. So in order to enable the filters from the red table here, enable these filters, what we need to do is use the keep filters function in DAX. Okay, so if we use the keep filters function, let's go to our measure here, and we're going to use the keep filters function here. So let's just add another filter here to our calculate. We're going to use the keep filters function on the calendar last n months table here. So we're going to use the keep filters function here. So we're going to keep the filters coming from the duplicate calendar table in each line here. So if we do that and add that filter, you will see here that we only get the results for the 6 months going back from July 13. So we're getting these results because now we're keeping the filters, and so the two filters coming from the red table, they are intersecting here. So basically there's a filter here coming, for example, from February 13, and there are 6 months of filters coming from the calculate function. There's a filter coming on this line here, which is February 13, for example, and we have 6 months of filters. So therefore the intersection is February 13. So this is what it's showing. It's showing now the result of the sales for February 13 here. And then here also there is a filter for March 13, and there's 6 months of filters. So the intersection is the sales for March 13, and so on and so forth. So now we're seeing only the results for these individual months on the table visual. And now if we remove the sales amount measure, because now we don't need it, we don't need the sales amount measure, we're just keeping it for illustration purposes. So we're going to remove the sales amount measure here. So we're only left with these 6 months of data here going back from July 13, so 6 months including July 13. Now if we change this table visual to a line chart, you can see here that now we get 6 months of data going back from July 13. If we select, for example, June 13, we're going to have 6 months of data. So starting from January 13 to June, change the year, and then you can see here that it's completely dynamic. And also even you can cross years basically. So as you can see here, now we have February 12 selected. So going back 6 months from February 12 will go back into 2011. So this is, as you can see here, completely dynamic here. All right, so one more step to make it even more dynamic is to make the number of months that we go back dynamic. So to add the slicer that we showed at the beginning of the video here at the top that enables us to select how many months we want to go back. Do we want to go back 6 months, 7 months, 12 months? Okay, so to do that, we're going to add a parameter here. So we're going to go to modeling and then new parameter, and this is going to be a numeric range. Let's call this parameter, I'm going to call it PRM last n months, and the data type for the parameter, of course, is going to be a whole number, and the minimum, let's make it 1, and the maximum, let's make it 12, and the increment is by 1, and the default is 6 months. And let's create that parameter. So this is going to add a slicer here to the page. Now we're going to have a slicer, as you can see here, where we can slide and select the number of months that we want to show. But now, after creating this parameter, what we need to do is to connect this parameter to the measure, which is an easy task. So what we need to do is to go here to the measure, and then instead of -6 here, we're just going to be negative PRM last months, or you could also make it -1 by PRM last months. So this is now connected. So if you press enter, and now if we change the number of months, you can see here that now we're only showing 5 months of data going back from our selection here, which is February 12. And you can select a different month and it will still go back by 5 months. If you choose here 12, then you're going to show 12 months of data. So this is how this trick is implemented. And of course, since this parameter is your standard slicer, so you can go here to the formatting of the slicer and you can change the slicer setting. Instead of a single value, you can make it, for example, a drop-down menu so that you can select the number of months. Like this is a drop-down menu, so it's just a standard slicer. You can also change the slicer header to make it number of months to show, for example, or something along those lines. And there you go. And of course, because this is a multiple selection slicer, so as you can see here, if you select two numbers, so if you select one and press and hold control and select the other one, this is currently actually 6 months. It's showing us 6 months here. Apparently it's showing actually the default selection when you select multiple. So it's going to show the default number, which we set the default number on the parameter. Remember earlier we set it as 6 months. So this is what it's showing at the moment. So this shouldn't be a multiple selection. I think this should be a single select slicer. So you should change it here to a single select so that the user is only able to select one number of months. So this would be preferred, a single selection. Also, I'd like to tell you that I've implemented this trick here in a dashboard that I created, and I created a video, a step-by-step tutorial on creating this dashboard, which is the call center dashboard. This is the agent view. So I implemented this on part 2 of the dashboard. I'll put the links for both videos, part 1 and part 2 of the dashboard, down below in the description if you'd like to watch how you can create this dashboard step by step, and you can follow along with me and create a complete project and add it to your portfolio as well. So as you can see here, I implemented this trick and I'm controlling multiple charts with it, and it's simply by duplicating the measure. So if you'd like to watch how you can create this dashboard step by step, you can check the links down below in the description. All right, guys, so before we end the video, I'd like to thank the SQLBI guys, Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari, for the video that they created. I think it was explained by Alberto Ferrari on how to implement this trick. So I actually got inspired by that video. I watched the trick on their YouTube channel and I got inspired, and I added this part here of making it dynamic using a parameter. So I'd like to thank them for the video and the information and all the great work they're doing in Power BI and DAX world. So if you'd like to watch a video for the SQLBI guys, I'll leave you the link for that video down below in the description. All right, guys, so this concludes our video today. So if you found the video helpful, please make sure to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified with all future videos. And please make sure to follow us on social media. You'll find the links down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.